We had every man in attendance line a sidewalk, and as they walked down that row, that gauntlet, every man put a hand on them and welcomed them to manhood.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Pursuit. It's good to see you again. I can't see you, but it's I guess just
it's good to be here.
It's good to be here.
And it's great to be here with Kirk M.
And it's good to be seen.
Boom.
Right?
Well,
how good is that?
Breathing,
great.
Alive.
On this side of the grass, man.
I'm telling
the
you.
green side of the grass.
In this day and age, in 2020,
yeah,
being alive and breathing,
man. Can't take it for granted.
Jeez, come on now.
Getting older is tough, but the alternative is tougher.
I hear you, my man.
That sucks.
Well, hey, before we get into the depth of our conversation today, which is a topic I'm excited to talk to you guys about today, let's make sure we pay out a little call out to those that are paying the bills on behalf of The Pursuit today, and that would be our friends over at Premier Home Loans.
I used them.
Those guys
They're
do
great.
an amazing job, incredible company.
Yeah.
And I tell you, it's the biggest decision you're going to make is buying a house.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest decision behind that is how you're going to finance this baby.
There's so many different ways to do it.
There is.
That is
It's
spaghetti
confusing.
out there, man. And you need somebody to actually come alongside you
It
and
is.
kind of sort all that stuff out.
It
for
can
you.
be intimidating, right? And this team is incredible. They take a very high-touch approach to really understand what your needs are, what your goals are, and they create a strategy and a plan that fits well for you. So if you're interested in this, there's a family-owned business, a family-driven operation that can take great care of you, and it's our friends at Premier Home Loans. So make sure you reach out to them, and you can contact them via the web on premierhomeloansco.com. It's premierhomeloansco.com. So make sure you reach out and tell them you heard about it here on The Pursuit. Well, we've got a repeat guest today. Although last time, Kirk, you were with us, it was virtually.
Yes.
And now you're here
In
person, and in color. You're a real person.
Live, 3D.
That's what
Not
I'm
an
talking
avatar.
about.
No, I'm not an avatar.
Okay.
I'm a real
All right.
deal. Real deal like Holyfield.
So why don't you remind our audience
Yeah.
about Kirk?
Kirk is the, let's see, we talked about the CEO, Chief Information Officer.
Sure.
Are you also IT for your
IT,
ministry?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
IT, yeah.
For Free Indeed.
Yeah.
Which, if I were to characterize it, is really a ministry that comes alongside men to enable us and encourage us to live in purity. And he shared some amazing stories from his life and kind of what prompted that and brought that about in the last, I think it was like episode 10 or 12, like way back.
And you know what's incredible? And we see this theme over and over again, right? We talk about the power of our testimony, the power of our story.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the flip side of that same coin, we talk about how our past, we can't allow our past to define us, right?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
But these are three men sitting in front of you right now that have checkered past, that have had challenges and struggles in our life. And even though it doesn't define us, man, it's foundational
Mm-hmm.
to who we are today
Mm-hmm.
and the work that we're doing. Not that we're perfect, far from it. But man, it keeps us in a place of humility that we can press into the things for which God has for us.
Mm-hmm.
So tell everybody just a little bit about what you're doing with Free Indeed.
First of all, just out here in the parking lot, I kind of created a little video drop for you, and man, it was exactly what you just said. You know, the reality is, man, being worthy is not a qualification for the call, man, for the purpose that we have for our lives. So yeah, I'm Kirk M. Samuels. I go by the moniker the Intimacy Incubator, and with strength, wisdom, gentleness, and mercy, I co-create a world of intimacy and unconditional connection by teaching and inspiring 1 million men how to live free from internet pornography.
What a purpose.
If I had a mic, I would drop.
that would be the
We're
mic
done.
drop.
No. Cut.
I mean, how many people can say in 15 seconds or less the purpose for which God has placed on their life? That's a beautiful gift.
Dude, that's why I'm here, man. 1 in 400 trillion is the odds of any one of us being born.
Right.
And I've discovered that's why I'm here, man.
Well, and you know what, though? That purpose sprung out of the struggle and the
Oh,
story,
man.
to your point.
Yeah.
And so to be able to be that clear,
Yeah.
because you've been healed from that, and you're walking in that, and you're enabling people to get free. And
Yeah, I mean, everything I do is from the belly of the beast, man. I mean, I don't have any initials behind my name. I don't have any papers on the wall, in my CEO office. But it comes through my experience, man. And when I connect with a guy where he is, I like to meet him where he is because I've been there. I know exactly what it feels like, dude. 30 of the first 40 years of my life, I was completely addicted to porn and every derivative of it. And at my rock bottom, I was sleeping in the back of my car and I was about 3 pounds of pressure on a trigger from blowing my brains out.
Wow.
That was my rock bottom. And so that's where I come from, man. I mean, I'm not, it's not everything I do. And I came up with this method to get free, how I got free. And that's what I teach and replicate to guys. But that doesn't come from a textbook. It comes from my life story, man, my experience. And so, yeah, I'm pretty transparent with all of that. And to your point, when I started telling my story, that's when, God started to get his glory. And then it's like light came down and boom, here it is right there. That's your path. Go for it.
But here's what I love. That's actually not what we're going to talk about today. However, it is absolutely a part of the process,
Absolutely.
right?
Sets it up.
Because there's guys that are already addicted, that have already gone down that path, that obviously they need help, and guys need to reach down and pull them out of the ditch, and that's part of what you're doing, and that's a beautiful ministry. Then there's the preventative side of things.
Absolutely.
Which is what we're going to talk about today. It's this idea and concept that God has kind of dropped on your heart as it relates to your 17-year-old son, about this idea of a rite of passage. So talk to us about that birthing point. When did that happen, and when did it get dropped on you? What did that look like?
As I've been kind of doing this work with men, I've kind of realized that a lot of, pornography is a drug, right? It's a medication. You don't find medication where there's no pain. And so a lot of it comes from medicating something inside of us, a pain. And a lot of us have a pain. A lot of us have a wound. And quite honestly, a lot of those are father wounds, right? He's either absent from the home, absent in the home. He was abusive, or he set such a high bar that we could never make him happy. And so a lot of what guys are medicating comes back to that. And so, there's a quote, and I'm going to butcher it. But it's a Frederick Douglass quote, and effectively it was like it's easier to create healthy children than to heal a broken man, something along those lines. And so, if we can rewind the clock, and if we can instill a sense of identity in a young man, and an identity in now that you are a man, here's what that looks like, then maybe we don't have to try to fix him on the back end. It's a whole lot easier to stop a guy at age 15 or 16 or 18 than to stop a guy at 45. Because by then he's been doing this for 30 years. That's all he knows. His whole persona, his brain, his spirit, everything is wrapped around this. So if we can get him, and this goes for a lot of areas, man, with young men.
It's not just porn, right?
Oh, no.
It's
Absolutely.
everything from healthy relationships, not only with someone of the opposite sex, but also coworkers and friends and bosses, and just how to handle your finances and how to do the right things.
Absolutely.
As a man, right? The things that God hardwired into us, that he's saying, this is how I created you as a protector and as a provider, moving in those ways, in healthy ways, right? It's a lot of what you're talking about too.
Right. It comes down to identity. When you know who you are, what you are flows out of that. And so when we get our identity straight, then the manifestation of that just begins to happen. And so when we can fold things back and peel back the layer of all of that, those onions, and we can get to the core of all of that and work on the identity part of it, then I don't have to worry about what I'm going to do. I just have to live out who I am and who I'm going to do on a daily basis. And so, yeah, that plays out in all kinds of areas of our lives.
And I tell you, we talk about this a lot, about this issue of identity and walking, we call walking in sonship, right? And certainly for the ladies in the audience that are watching, it's not just about the term sonship. It's also as a woman walking as a daughter of the king, right? And what that looks like, what that means. And this is a fact. If we're not intentional in choosing that path, the world around us and our culture will define it for us.
Absolutely. Jesus was God, right? I mean, is God. But I mean, when he was on this earth, he was God in human form. But at the same time, God the Father affirmed Jesus.
No question.
I mean, in his identity.
No question.
This is my son. I mean, I'm pleased in you, right? And so if that applies on a heavenly, on a divine level, why should it not apply here on a human level?
That's right.
In terms of identity and how significant that is, especially affirmation from the masculine to a masculine. It takes a man to make a man. And a lot of young men today are being raised primarily by women, surrounded by women. They get a whole lot of femininity, not a lot of masculinity. And then we wonder why they're warped. And then we come out with toxic masculinity, which to me is an oxymoron. If it's toxic, it's not masculinity. But either way, that passing down, it's a tribal thing. Unfortunately, in our culture, we don't live in a tribal kind of mentality or mindset. But again, that's an area for us to work on.
Well, talk about that because you think about kind of the typical teenager, kind of walking around awkward, unsure of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
To your point, many of them raised in a fatherless home, looking for someone to affirm them and give them their identity, right? And now they're, from high school, they don't find that. College, they don't find that. They're 20, 30, 45, and now they're struggling still with identity. Look around.
Absolutely.
But talk about the importance of what that means to identify that young man early and take him through the actual ceremonial. I want to set up this whole discussion about what is a rite of passage and why is it important?
Yeah, I mean, and I think it is ultimately the goal is to lay masculine hands on him and tell him you are a man. I mean, that the powerful, just the significance of that is so underrated. Just laying hands on him and telling him you're a man now. I mean, that is otherwise to your point, they begin to seek it in culture, whether it's gangs, whether it's sports, whether it's unhealthy sexuality, whatever it is, they seek that. And that's because they don't have that sense of you are a man. And so that shift and yeah, I saw that in my son. My son is 17 currently, and I saw that in him. I saw him. He's 6'4", and now he's starting to get a little swole because he's getting under some weights. But I can see in his mentality and his spirit, kind of the one pulling one way and one pulling the other. Am I a man or am I a boy? And so that just kind of called to my heart because nobody ever told me I was a man.
So you set up a ceremony,
Yeah.
if you will, if I could use that term.
Sure.
Talk to us about that. Talk to us about what you did.
Yeah.
And what was the power of that at the end?
The pillar, and this is kind of, again, a purely divine inspiration, right? I mean, I'm not even going to begin to take credit. Divine inspiration, and it was like the three pillars, almost like a tripod. The three pillars came to me in like 3 C's. One being challenge, one being camaraderie / community, and the other being ceremony. And so as I saw those coming together, I saw a 24-hour challenge. There was no sleep. I mean, we ate, but there was no sleep. And in that 24-hour time, that 24-hour challenge, we instilled a sense of community and camaraderie. I mean, at first it was, the idea was just for my son. And then when it all came together, I was like, okay, community and camaraderie, that maybe that's involving some other teams.
So who was involved in this group? Explain to us who you united together.
Right. And so over that 24-hour period, I just kind of reached out to just guys. Like I just happen to know a lot of dope guys, right? And I came up with this brainstorm list of maybe 20 something guys, and I had to stop asking people at like guy number 8 because by then 6 had already said I'm in no matter what. And I was like, okay, in 24 hours, I'm gonna run out of time, right? So and so I had these guys over the course of that 24 hours, they came in and basically dropped wisdom bombs. And those wisdom bombs is basically the narrative of their life story with 3 mile markers. And those 3 mile markers were pain, profession, meaning career, pain, meaning obstacles that they've had to overcome, profession, meaning career, and the sense of purpose that they found. And I mean, those 3 were kind of the 3 touch points in each visit. And it was so many different backgrounds, everything from, a guy that was a 2nd round NFL draft pick to the mayor of my town, Parker, to a former gang member, drug dealer, to now business owner, to a former heroin addict, now, addiction recovery. I mean, I can go on and on and on. Guy that started in his living room and sold his business for almost 9 figures. I mean, so on. But just wisdom. Just wisdom bombs on these guys. Like it'll be a decade before they even realize what they got. And then at the end of that 24-hour, community and challenge, then there was the ceremony.
You know what I think about? I think about the Scrooge movie. What's the name of that movie?
It was like a remake of.
I shouldn't ask you about movies.
You shouldn't ask me.
No, it was
What is
the
it?
Christmas
What's
story,
the Christmas, whatever it's called.
3 Visits by the Ghost.
You guys know what I'm talking about. It's the 3 ghosts that show up and
Oh, okay.
it's a really good movie. You should watch it sometime.
Yeah.
It's called Scrooge.
Yes.
Not the one with Bill Murray. Don't watch that one.
Yeah,
okay. Go original on it. But that's what I think of, right? As
Absolutely.
these ghosts from the past, present, and future show up and drop these wisdom bombs, right, on Scrooge for him to hopefully learn and move from. But the cool thing, you're doing this at such an early age for this young man.
Let me add this,
Love
though.
it.
I think that wisdom is absolutely important.
Mhm.
What's being shared is absolutely important.
Mhm.
But to me, equally or even more important is the fact that these men have showed up,
Mm-hmm.
carved out time to say, you're important,
Yes.
and I'm recognizing the seed of manhood
Yes.
that's in you. You're
Yes.
significant. Your life is significant.
Yes.
And you're about to walk through a threshold.
Yes. And that was one of the guys that came, his best friend of 51 years was in hospice and was probably going to die that day. He still came by for an hour and hung out with these guys and just like, talked to them about, about suffering well and living well and just all kinds of stuff, man. And, a 8th degree black belt national Taekwondo champion was there at 10 o'clock at night doing a board break. I mean, but yeah, these guys, and nobody asked for $1 because I don't have any, but nobody asked for $1. They just did it because they saw the vision, and it was powerful, man. And yeah, it was passing down of wisdom. Like if I could talk to myself at 17 years old, what would I say based on the life that I lived?
So what has your son said since then? What did it mean to him?
So a couple of days later, he plays football in high school, right? So a couple of days later, I'm working from home, and so he texted asking me to bring his football bag with all of his gear because he forgot it. He woke up late that morning and rushed out the door and forgot it. And so I took it up to the school. I didn't think much more about it. Then later on that evening, he kind of, he's kind of like came to me and just paused like next to me. And I'm thinking, okay, what'd you do, man? And he just said, Dad, he said, I want to thank you for bringing my bag up there. He said, it wasn't a manly thing for me to do to forget my bag and to not be responsible for having my stuff when I need it. So I just want to thank you for supporting me and for bringing that up there.
Wow.
And I mean, but the way he articulated it wasn't a manly thing to do to not or to drop the ball on my responsibility.
See, what's beautiful, there's so many things that are beautiful about that, but what I think about is, he gained a new reference point.
Boom.
That he didn't have before.
Boom.
He had something to draw from.
Mm-hmm.
A couple days ago, we had a young lady in here. You may know her, Krista DeYoung, John DeYoung's wife, and
well.
she runs Girl Above.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about this idea of social media,
Mm-hmm.
right, and the impact it is having on teenagers
Mm-hmm.
today. And I'm sure you have a take on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved one of the things she said as it relates to kind of what to do with your kids as it relates to this issue.
Mm-hmm.
And we were speaking about how can we begin to change the heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we change the heart of the kid?
Mm-hmm.
How do we change the heart of these young teenagers as it relates to social media?
Mm-hmm.
How do we change the heart of these young men and women as it relates to walking now into this place of adulthood?
Mm-hmm.
And she shared a very similar truth that you just shared with us from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And she said one of the things that she does with teenage, specifically girls, is they sit down and they develop and they talk about what is important to you.
Mm-hmm.
What are your values? Really, what are your values? And
Mhm.
what do you find to be important?
Mm-hmm.
And writing them down and actually thinking about them and processing them, because those become, I think she referred to them as rocks
Mhm.
Yeah.
in your life
Mhm.
that you can always, it's an anchor, if you will, that you can always go back and refer to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I hear happened here for your son,
Mm-hmm.
is a new anchor was created.
Mm-hmm.
And he went back and he said, you know what? That doesn't line up with what a man should do.
Right.
And you don't have to tell it to him.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to discipline him for it. It's a heart change that he's going to have to work through.
Yeah.
That now is long lasting, right?
Yeah, you give him a gift. You give him that to your point. You give him that moment. You give him that anchor. When we actually had the ceremony part of it the next day, we had each one of them. I called the whole thing the crossing, but we gave each one of them an opportunity to develop a personal mission statement. And then we took them to a park where there's a bridge. We had them go halfway and they read their personal mission statements. Then they came the rest of the way. We handed them a 4-foot Braveheart sword, an anchor to remember all of this by. And then, welcome them to manhood. And then behind us, we had every man in attendance line a sidewalk. And as they walked down that row, that gauntlet, every man put a hand on them and welcomed them to manhood.
Mm-hmm.
Never forget that.
Mm-hmm.
And they will know the date that they became a man. And to your point, it's a reference point. It's a foundation. It's a foundation. It's a rock, like Peter. On that rock, I'll build something. I'll build my church.
That's right.
And so he has a reference point for that.
So I asked you earlier, I said, where did you read this? Is this a formula, right? Did you just put together this recipe and put all these things into it? He said, no, it's really just inspired by God. But talk to a man out there that wants to do something significant like this for their son.
Yeah.
Maybe talk about what he's beginning to even put the seed of thought in terms of a ministry opportunity for you to kind of develop this a little bit more. But it's not necessarily about the formula, is it? It's about the presence of the man, the father that wants to bestow this on his son. So talk about that.
Right. I mean, I think it's incumbent upon us as men today, regardless of our past, regardless of our wounds, regardless of what we didn't get. That's not an excuse for our responsibility today. And I think our responsibility today as men are to reproduce ourselves or to replace ourselves or to make better versions of ourselves for the next generation. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to take it serious and to look at our sons, not even the sons that are in our house, but the sons that are in our community and say, man, how can I replicate this? Right. What are we doing for the next generation? Are we leaving are we leaving the world better than when we got here? And the only way we can do that as men, I think, or one of the ways anyway, is to replace ourselves or to advance the ball down the field. You guys tend to know football pretty well, right? I mean, to matriculate the ball down the field. I mean, did I advance the ball at all? And so, yeah, I mean, having gone through that, I'm extremely passionate about it. And I'm kind of like, all right, God, are you down? Like, if you're down, I'm down. Let's do this, right? I mean, the whole concept, easily replicatable. I mean, again, the vision that I have, it was crystal daggone clear, man. It was scary how crystal clear it was. And yeah, I mean, the short answer is call me, holler at your boy. I mean, I'll either pass the information that I had and how I did it, or, we can do this together. I mean, we can get a group of guys together and a group of, young men and men. And each one of the teens brought a man in their life with them, whether it was a father, uncle, grandfather, coach, pastor, whomever, to kind of hold space for them throughout that whole process as well. And so, yeah, I mean, this is something that we can absolutely do together. This is, it belongs to God. And if he wants me to, answer the phone and do this, then I'm down.
You know what, Kirk? I love what you said just a few moments ago. Is you just expanded the audience as it relates to who can participate in this process. Because prior to what you said, what I was thinking is guys that have young men that are still in the house. And what you just said is, and you're exactly right, there are so many homes out there that don't have fathers in it. That these young men are growing up with these incredible, courageous mothers that are doing everything they possibly can to raise these young men, right? And we all know people that are in that situation today. So maybe you don't have sons, or maybe your sons are long gone and they're often married. There's a population of young men out there that are dying for that male figure in their life that looks at them in their eyes and says, "You are good enough."
Absolutely.
Right? You are approved. You are prepared. Yeah. And by the way, I'm here to walk with you. Right? And that's part of the journey too. Is having that, you mentioned a tribe, having that tribe around you that says, man, I know I can't do this alone. Right. I need accountability, right? I need guys that can speak wisdom in my life. I need guys that can kind of kick me in the tail from time to time when I need it, right? Yeah. And that's so important.
To show them, to debunk before they even get there, this idea that to be a man is to be a Lone Ranger.
Ooh, no.
Right?
Even Lone Ranger had Tonto.
There you go. But it is about community. You're modeling what it means to be a man inside community for people, young men who are living through a paternal pandemic, if I could put it like that.
Yeah, the only thing God said wasn't good during their creation week was man being alone.
That's right.
Only thing he said wasn't good. That's right. And if Jesus walked this earth with a group of people, then we should too. I mean, and so, from a tribe perspective, man, we can go maybe a little bit faster by ourselves, but if we want to distance, if we want to run this marathon, we got to do it together, man. The full armor of God doesn't have anything on the back because we're supposed to be back to back.
That's right.
We're supposed to be covering each other's back. If I got your 6 and you got my 6, then your full armor is covering my back, and my full armor is covering your back. And that's how we're supposed to live, man. And so, there's young folks all around us, man. We, as men, if we look at all beneath the surface, we have a circle of influence. We know teens in our neighborhood, sports teams. We know, teens in our church. Whatever your community is, God calls us to a circle. Whether we influence or not is up to us, right? And so we have a sphere of influence. It's up to us to step forward and say, you know what? I'm going to make an impact here. I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this little area, whatever that God has given me. I'm going to do something with it, and then let Him decide how how far to take that whole thing.
That's an investment,
Absolutely.
but it's an investment that has a return like nothing else this world can offer.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, because you talked about impacting another generation, but ultimately what we're really doing is we're impacting eternity.
Oh, no doubt.
And that's significance.
No doubt, my man. When you die, the only thing that will never be somebody else's or could never be somebody else's is your legacy. I mean, your debt, your money, your stuff, your house, your car, maybe even your wife, your kids, they might be somebody else's when you're gone. Your legacy can never be replaced, like your fingerprint or your retina or your DNA. That's your eternal, universal, heavenly, divine DNA is your legacy. So what are you going to do with that?
Just like we opened the show, as long as you have breath, you're writing your legacy.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm telling you, if you're out there and you're not proud of your past and you're trying to pull yourself out of that place right now, man, it's not too late. It's not too late. Start now. Do something different, right? That's what repentance is. It's literally just turning and returning that back to which you know is right. Mm-hmm. And so, man, we can make a difference. Maybe you failed. Maybe you failed in raising your boys. You know what? It's not too late. You have a chance to reach out and make a difference in the life of another person. So that's my encouragement today. Man, this is a great topic that is so important. Man, if we could learn a few things from our Jewish brothers and sisters, they got this thing down, right? There's that point of adulthood that they speak into their kids' lives, and that's a legacy that lasts beyond a lifetime. Kirk, you're a great man. You're a great guest. Look forward to having you back again, my brother.
No doubt. My brother's from another mother.
That's right. And we will see all of you next time on The Pursuit.